A double circle skirt has 2 full circles of fabric, which gives it a lot of flair and makes it really feminine and chic. If you want to see how I made this one from scratch with a zipper, waistband, and hook and eye closure, keep watching. To sew this, you need the following items: 3 yards of non-stretch fabric and up to 5 or 7 yards if you want your skirt to be longer. For my skirt, I'm using cotton African print fabric that I got from Pink's Fabrics in Ocho Rios. You also need matching thread for your fabric, Pellon interfacing, a tape measure, a hand sewing needle, fabric scissors, a sewing machine, a serger which is optional, a circle skirt pattern, a hook and eye closure, an iron, and pins. In the description box down below, you can find a tutorial on how to make the circle skirt pattern on your own and links to get all the other items that I listed here. If you would like to change the speed of this video, follow these instructions. I've also added timestamps to the description box down below in case you want to skip to a specific part of the tutorial. The first thing I did was to fold my fabric in half 3 times so that I could have 8 layers of fabric. Then I put the circle skirt pattern in the corner that's folded. I pinned the pattern to the fabric to keep it in place. Then I cut around the pattern using this electric cutting machine. If you want to go faster and cut straighter lines when sewing, you can get this cutting machine at the link in my description box down below. I ended up with 2 small circles from the top of the fabric and 2 large circles for the body of the skirt. I took one of them and I cut it down one of the folds to open it at the back like this. I'm going to be calling this the front piece for reference. And then I took the other circle at the sides so that now it's split into 2 pieces. I'm calling these the back pieces. I put each of the back pieces right sides together with the front piece, one on each side, and then I pinned along the sides to hold them in place while I sew. I am currently sewing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance using a size 14 needle and a stitch length of 3.5. To finish the raw edges, I used my overlock machine. This is also known as a serger. This is how I gathered the skirt. The waistline of the skirt was way too big for me, so I gathered it by sewing 2 parallel lines at the top of the skirt. The first line was 1/4 inch away from the top, and the second line was 1/4 inch away from the first line. The stitch length when you're doing this must be set to 5. Next, I took the 2 bottom threads on one side of the skirt and I started to move the fabric along it to make gathers. I did this until the waistline was equal to my waist circumference plus 1, give or take. This is how I cut the waistband. I folded my fabric like this and pinned the waistband pattern to it. Then I cut around the edges of the waistband pattern. This waistband is included in the tutorial that you're going to be using in order to make this circle skirt pattern for yourself, and it's actually quite simple to make this circle skirt pattern, so I do encourage you to check that video out. I also cut Pellon interfacing the same size and shape as my waistband, and I pressed the bumpy part of the Pellon to the wrong side of my fabric, and I pressed in each spot for about 5 seconds before moving on. You can get Pellon in your local fabric store in the color white or black, and I just chose to go with black because my fabric has a darker color. I then folded the waistband in half horizontally and gave it a press. Then after that, I folded one of the raw edges in by 1/2 inch. I gave that a press, and then I pressed the waistband while it was folded one more time. Here, I'm measuring to make sure that my waistband is the same height going straight across. This is very important. The final step to preparing the waistband was cutting off 1/4 inch from the side of it that was not folded. This step is also very important. This is how I added the waistband to my skirt. When I felt like the waistline of my skirt was gathered enough, I put the waistband down like this, and then I placed it right sides together with the skirt. I was then able to pin the opposite ends of the skirt to the ends of the waistband, and I evenly distributed the gathers so that they would fill out the space. This meant that the waistband and the waistline of my skirt were the same. I used pins to hold the waistband and skirt together. And once I was done pinning, I stitched them together with a 1/2 inch allowance like this. This is how I added a zipper to my skirt. Starting on one of the raw edges at the center back of the skirt, I put an 8-inch zipper right sides together with the fabric so that the top of the zipper was at the fold of the waistband. Then I folded the other part of the waistband backwards so that the right side of it was touching the wrong side of the zipper. I pinned the zipper to the skirt to keep it in place, and then I stitched along the zipper teeth. I made a clip in the fabric right before the metal bar on the zipper as a guide for where to stop sewing, and I stitched down to that clip. Watch this tutorial for better instructions on how to install zippers. To make the corner of the waistband square, I cut away the excess right here and turned it inside out. I repeated these same steps on the other side of the zipper in order to complete it. I switched back to the regular presser foot and I stitched the fabric that was below the zipper to finish the center back of the skirt. I did this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. To finalize the waistband, I top stitched the waistline seam, and if you want more stability and to make sure that your waistband doesn't slide out of place, I do advise pinning this. This is how I finished the hem of the skirt. I first finished the raw edges with my serger, and then I folded it by 1/4 inch and stitched it down. You can pin this for stability, but the hem of a double circle skirt is really long, so that's going to add some extra time to your sewing, and you can keep that in mind. Here I'm using my iron to press the waistband and the hem of the skirt to make them crisp and neat. Whenever I wear a skirt like this without a hook and eye, it's usually harder to zip it up, and there's always a likelihood that the zipper may come undone when I'm wearing it. So to save myself the embarrassment, I just add a hook and eye to all of my skirts for maximum security. Watch this tutorial for better instructions on how to add a hook and eye to a skirt. You can also watch this tutorial to see how I made a regular circle skirt. It has some really key insights that might be helpful in making this one.